actor, and director who was intentionally and internationally recognized as one of the icons of English theatre. Mr. Fugard received the Order of Ikamanga Silver in 2004 and in 2010. Mr. Ashwin Hirji Trikamji, a distinguished attorney, human rights advocate, and religious leader. He was the president of the South African Hindu Maha Sabha and a director at the 1860 Heritage Center. Mr. Carden Woodley, a Glenwood High School student who tragically passed away after collapsing during a hockey warm-up. All victims that have engulfed our province and elsewhere in the country, all flood victims, all artists and veterans in the entertainment industry, all victims of gender-based violence, femicide, and hate crimes, all public servants and traditional leaders of this province and the country at large, and all victims of road fatalities in our province during the recent past. Honorable members, let us now observe a moment of silence to honor those who have gone before us. May we please stand? May their souls rest in eternal peace. Amen. Honorable members, we are on item 3 on the order paper. Apologies. We have an apology from Honorable N.N. Boyce, the Speaker of the National Legislature, who is away on business but will connect virtually. Members who are not well, Honorable P.A.T.N. Buthelezi remains unwell but will also connect virtually. Honorable members, we just have a few mention of birthdays. I'd like to take this opportunity to wish a happy belated birthday to the following members. Honorable Mr. B.A.M. Kize on the 2nd of March. Honorable Mr. L.M. Mayer on the 11th of March. Honorable Dr. I. Kika on the 12th of March. And Honorable Mr. T.Z. Zuma on the 19th of March. Happy belated birthday, honorable members. And I'd like to wish a happy birthday in advance to the following members. Honorable Ms. D.L. Nzama on the 28th of March, and Honorable Mr. W.N.M. Kize on the 30th of March. On behalf of everyone, I'd like to wish all these members a fun-filled and memorable year ahead. Honorable members, World TB Day was observed on the 24th of March each year. It is designed to build public awareness about the global pandemic of tuberculosis and effects to eliminate the disease. The 2025 theme this year is Yes, We Can End TB, Commit, Invest, Deliver. We encourage members to join the efforts to raise awareness to eliminate tuberculosis in their constituencies. Honorable members, in terms of Standing Rule 143.4, the names of the members appointed to committees must be published in the announcements, tablings, and committee reports, the ATC. The list with the revised allocations effected on 18 March will be circulated to all members. Honorable members, we are on item 4 of the order paper, announcements by the Premier. Honorable Premier, do you have any announcements or reports?
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker, the Leader of Government Business, members of the Executive Council, Chief Whip, members of the Legislature. I have no announcement.
Siyabonga Mpemba. Honorable members, we are on item 5 of the order paper, tablings of reports and papers, KwaZulu-Natal Legislature. KwaZulu-Natal Legislature performance budget in year monitoring for the month of February 2025, Portfolio Committee on Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, Oversight Visit Report, Disaster Management Center, Pietermaritzburg, the 5th of November 2024, and Community Stakeholders Interaction Session Report, Mkanyagu District, Jozini Local Municipality, Bambanani Hall, 17th of January 2025. Portfolio Committee on Finance Portfolio Committee Performance Report, July 2024 to February 2025, and 2024-2025 Focused Intervention Study topic Ezemvelo KZN Wildlife Infrastructure Projects Finance Portfolio Committee Report, July 2024, February 2025. 5.2 Standing Committee on Public Accounts. Standing Committee on Public Accounts SCOPA Performance Reports July 2024 to July 2025. Portfolio Committee on Sports, Arts and Culture, KwaZulu-Natal Portfolio Committee on Sports, Arts and Culture, Oversight Visit to Zimkulu Fitness Center, 22nd October 2024. Department of Sports, Arts and Culture, 2025-2026, Annual Performance Plan for the KwaZulu-Natal Department of Sports, Arts and Culture, 2025 to 2030, Strategic Plan for the KwaZulu-Natal Department of Sports, Arts and Culture. Honorable members, are there any other tablings of reports or papers? Please may a member rise if they would like to indicate. Thank you so much, honorable members. We will move on to formal motions or notices by the Chief Whip. Honorable Chief Whip, do you have any formal motions or notices?
Honorable Deputy Speaker, the Honorable Premier of the Province, the Executive Council and colleagues in the legislature, I have no formal motions or notices. I thank you.
Siyabonga, Honorable Kwala. Honorable members, we'll move on to the orders of the day. Thank you, honorable members. We have now come to the item 7.1, the matter pertaining to the tabling of the KwaZulu-Natal Adjustments Appropriation Bill 2025 by the MEC of Finance. Honorable MEC Francois Rodgers, please may you proceed. Thank you.
Yabulela Somlo. Honorable Speaker, Ms. Ntembeko Boyce, Honorable Deputy Speaker, Mabato Tembe, Honorable Premier, Mr. Tamsan Ntuli, members of the KwaZulu-Natal Provincial Executive Council, honorable members of the Provincial Legislature, members of the Diplomatic Corps, Chairperson of the KwaZulu-Natal Provincial House of Traditional and Khoisan Leaders, Nkosi Shinga, all traditional leaders, Director General Dr. Nonhlanhla Mkhize, Head of Department of Treasury Ms. Carol Coetzee, all heads of department and senior management, CEOs of public entities, the people of KwaZulu-Natal, friends of the media, business leaders, and distinguished guests. It is my honor, Madam Speaker, today to table the second Adjustments Appropriation Bill 2025 in the House. I table this bill in 3 languages, namely English, isiZulu, and Afrikaans. Together with the bill, I table an explanatory memorandum which explains the further amendments being made to the 24-25 budget. We also provide copies of the Government Gazette issued by National Treasury. This second Adjustments Appropriation Bill is being tabled in line with Section 31A of the Public Finance Management Act, which provides for a province to table an adjustment budget in the event that funds have become available to the province. Madam Speaker, this is once again good news for the province, as National Treasury has allocated additional funding to our province. Honourable members will recall that we tabled the adjustment budget for 2024 in this House on the 24th of November last year. There are further amendments that have been made since that require formalization by this House, which were only allocated in late February of this year. These amendments relate to the 24-25 financial year, and it is therefore imperative that this bill is tabled, debated, and voted on before the end of the financial year, which we all should know is the 31st of March. We would like to express our gratitude to the Provincial Legislature for making time in its very busy schedule to accommodate this process. The second adjustments budget provides for amendments as a result of National Treasury allocating funds to the province of KwaZulu-Natal. The province of KwaZulu-Natal is required, in terms of the government notices, to table an adjustments appropriation bill for 24-25, referred to as the second adjustments appropriation bill of 2025. Government Gazette number 52 of 2007 was published by National Treasury and signed by the Minister of Finance in terms of the Division of Revenue Act, and provides information on adjustments to existing allocations to provinces in the 24-25 financial year. In accordance with this Government Gazette and in compliance with Section 18 of the Division of Revenue Act, funds are stopped from the Human Rights Development Grant in the Western Cape, 200 million rand, Gauteng, 300 million rand, and in the Free State, 50 million rand. In compliance with Section 19 of DORA, these funds have been reallocated to KwaZulu-Natal, 100 million rand. I would have thought we would have a round of applause, honourable members. Although I did, during the committee, hear one member say 100 million rand is not a lot of money. To me, it's an enormous amount of money. Limpopo are getting an additional 200 million, and Mpumalanga 250 million, and in total, human settlements in KwaZulu-Natal increases to 2.872 billion rand. Moreover, and importantly, the National Department of Basic Education stopped funds from the Education Infrastructure Grant in Limpopo, 187 million rand. These funds have been reallocated to KwaZulu-Natal. 137 million rand is what KwaZulu-Natal receives, and the Free State 50 million rand in accordance with Section 18 and 19 of DORA. This brings the total for the grant under Vote 5, Education in the province, to 2.52 billion rand. Madam Speaker, the above is a clear demonstration of the capabilities of the province of KwaZulu-Natal and the two departments in particular to deliver effective and therefore be effective service and therefore be in a position to receive additional funding where other provinces have failed to spend. In addition, another adjustment is being formalized in the second adjustment appropriation bill. In this regard, Vote 6, Provincial Treasury, is suspending 20.177 million from their 24-25 baseline across programs 1, 3 and 4, mainly against the savings of compensation of employees and goods and services to be relocated to the vote in 25-26. The funds will be used towards funding various projects that will be implemented in the coming financial year. These include providing funding for the Provincial Financial Recovery Plan, an e-procurement system tool for the province, as well as funding to provide for an internal audit assignment on behalf of the Department of Education, who have not yet established their internal audit function. As I mentioned earlier, Section 31 of the PFMA provides the legal basis for tabling a provincial adjustments budget. The adjustment estimate I am tabling today considers changes that National Treasury is making to the provincial budget, as well as the surrendering of funds to be used in the future. I therefore, Madam Speaker, table the Gazette received from the National Treasury, an explanatory memorandum, as well as the second adjustments appropriation bill. In conclusion, the second adjustments appropriation bill 2025 highlights the effect of all challenges made in the grey shading in the schedule of the bill. The bill, once again, once adopted, allows for these changes to be made to the budgets of the affected votes. We look forward to briefing the Finance Portfolio Committee and other committees on these proposed amendments, and once again, we'd like to express our gratitude that we were able to table this important bill before the end of the financial year. Ndiyabulela, Somlo.
Thank you so much, Honourable MEC. Honourable members, we will proceed to item 7.2 on the order paper, which is the budget speech by the MEC of Finance. I will now again invite the MEC of Finance to please come and table the budget. Thank you. Honourable members, 2 seconds before the MEC presents, and in terms of the Standing Rule 239 of the KZN Second Adjustment Appropriation Bill 2025, I will hereby refer the Portfolio Committee on Finance and the Standing Committee of Oversight after the tabling of the budget. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Honourable Speaker, in her absentia, Ms. Ntembeko Boyce, Honourable Deputy Speaker, Ms. Mabato Tembe, Honourable Premier, Mr. Tamsan Ntuli, and members of the KwaZulu-Natal Provincial Executive Council, Honourable members of the Provincial Legislature, members of the Diplomatic Corps, Chairperson of the KwaZulu-Natal Provincial House of Traditional and Khoisan Leaders, Nkosi Shinga, all traditional leaders, Director General Dr. Nonhlanhla Mkhize, Head of the Department, Ms. Carol Kutsia and her team, all heads of department and senior management, COEs of public entities, the people of KwaZulu-Natal, friends of the media, business leaders, and distinguished guests. Madam Speaker, it's now over 9 months since the government of provincial unity came into power in KwaZulu-Natal. Our ability to unite as political parties, despite our differences, has ushered new hope of shared prosperity and progress for the people of the province of KwaZulu-Natal. We can be proud that as KwaZulu-Natal, we managed to form a government long before political parties at a national level could form the government of national unity. I make this point in reflection of our dark and violent past. Those who lived through that era of political intolerance in KZN will attest to the significant strides we have made in advancing stability in our democracy. The creation of a capable, ethical, and developmental state is the cornerstone and a key uniting factor in the government of provincial unity. Madam Speaker, ahead of tabling this year's budget, I sought public contribution from people in all corners of KwaZulu-Natal. It is pleasing to note that the majority of more than 200 contributions sourced through social media, over 70% were in the 25 to 34 age group area. This is testimony that when consulted or given an opportunity, our young people are in tune with political developments in our province. The message from the people of KwaZulu-Natal is clear. They want an effective government that is run on principle rather than political machinations. They want service delivery in a qualitative manner to be delivered. Opportunities must be granted on merit rather than through patronage and favoritism. Mr. Mqondisi Ngoma from Ladysmith, under the Utukela District Municipality, requested that this budget should empower young people with skills empowerment and training in the agricultural sector. Mr. Ngoma specifically asked that there should be economic opportunities for young people in this sector. Makewane, I'm pleased to tell you that the government of provincial unity, like our national counterparts, is in the early stages of implementing the new public-private partnership policy. Through this policy, we envisage that government will partner with the private sector to advance inclusive economic growth, youth empowerment, which is a critical part of that process. Last year, I was invited to the annual general meeting of the Harry Gwala Agri, a non-profit company which aims to address unemployment and food insecurity in its region of operation by upskilling and facilitating growth among aspiring farmers. This impressive organization, which was established in 2017, has trained over 206 students who have gone on to complete their studies and graduated in the agricultural sector. About 85% of these trainees now work in the agricultural sector, with 50% of them having been absorbed by the farms where they served their in-service training through the facilitation of the Harry Gwala Agri. The company has expressed interest in partnering with the government of KwaZulu-Natal. We are hoping that this will be possible through cooperation and our colleagues from the Department of Agriculture and Rural Development. Dr. Koliswa Shangasi, an unemployed medical practitioner from eThekwini, has urged that the GPU increase the budget for the health department so that it may be able to recruit more doctors, nurses, social workers, physiotherapists, and pharmacists, as well as procuring medication and the necessary supplies. I wish to inform Dr. Shangasi that this administration is not pleased with the fact that there are so many healthcare practitioners who are unemployed, especially in recognition of the high demand for their services. This administration inherited a constrained fiscus. However, it remains our focus to prioritize frontline services such as healthcare, education, and social development sectors. Additional funding for the wage agreement gap is allocated to health of over 1 billion rand over the MTF and over 750 million rand for budget pressures. Health is allocated 35% of the entire provincial budget. Further good news was the announcement by the Minister of Godongwana of the additional 28 billion rand to be allocated to health departments across all provinces. And as the province and as Treasury, we're already engaging with our national counterparts to see how much of that 28 billion we can get for the province of KwaZulu-Natal to specifically deal with the crisis in health. We must protect existing jobs within our frontline sectors. Tobo Gumede from Newcastle lamented about late payments to suppliers by government departments and entities. I must admit that it is concerning to hear stories of many small businesses struggling to function because certain public entities and departments are not paying on time. Such a practice does not bode well for our vision of establishing a thriving entrepreneurial culture. Certainly as government, we must lead by example. Our Treasury, our pay-on-time team, remains open and committed to assisting departments and other entities improving and fulfilling their obligations to suppliers. An e-procurement tool, which is currently in the process of being approved by National Treasury, will curb departments and entities from incurring expenditure when in fact they are not cash-backed. Madam Speaker, it is my honor to present the 25-26 MTF estimates of the provincial revenue and expenditure, which gives details of the provincial fiscal framework to the people of this province and beyond. These estimates provide an opportunity for the provincial legislature and citizens to hold the provincial departments and public entities accountable for the public funds they spend. Details are provided in the budget documents that I'm tabling today on what the allocated funds will be spent on and how this budget will benefit the people of our beautiful province. Please allow me, Madam Speaker, to table the following documents: Appropriation Bill 2025, the 25-26 Provincial Budget Speech, 25-26 Estimates of Provincial Revenue and Expenditure, 25-26 Estimates of Capital Expenditure. Madam Speaker, when appropriated, this bill will give the legal basis for departments and public entities to spend their 25-26 budget. Honourable members, global conditions have been relatively stable over the past 2 years as disinflation proceeds amid easing energy and food prices alongside favourable global chains. The falling inflation rate and less restrictive monetary policies are expected to support consumption, investment, and financial conditions. In its recent projections, the IMF forecast modest global growth of 3.3% this year and in 2026. It is worrisome, however, that the trade policy shifts have intensified as the United States of America recently announced tariffs on certain commodities. This signals an imminent second round of trade war as US trading partners might retaliate. If this materializes, it could cause significant market volatility and could stabilize global growth. Turning to South Africa, Madam Speaker, it remains a concern for us that our country's economy continues to perform significantly lower than its growth potential. The country has made significant progress in stabilizing the electricity supply, as is evidenced by the suspension of load shedding for a greater part of last year. Despite this, economic performance remained on a low growth path with an estimate of 0.7%. However, recent projections indicate that the national growth could reach 1.7 this year, 1.8 in 2026, and supported by the improvements in the electricity supply and further reforms in the transport sector. Also, household consumption is expected to benefit from lower inflation and interest rates, while business confidence could stimulate growth and private investment. Honourable members, the forecast growth is still below the desired level, which would help us to address the social challenges of high unemployment, poverty, and inequality. The low growth problem limits government's ability to collect tax revenue. As a result, our debt could reach unsustainable levels where spending on social priorities is crowded out, or where we need to look at alternate solutions, such as reviewing our revenue streams in the province of KwaZulu-Natal. Years of poor policy implementation at a national level, a declining global economy, coupled with the COVID pandemic, have played havoc with our financial stability in the province. The province, as we now know, had to face over 70 billion rand worth of budget cuts, as well as various unfunded wage agreements over the 4 years. That 60 billion rand is literally just short of half of our annual budget. That was cut off our budgets over 4 years. It's therefore little wonder that we are struggling to recover from those cuts. After stagnation and deterioration, KwaZulu-Natal's economy has somewhat stabilized. The deceleration was attributed to numerous structural challenges, including extensive electricity load shedding, alongside rail and port operational bottlenecks. Despite a low growth trajectory, KwaZulu-Natal's economy grew faster than the national economy when using 2013 as a base year. However, the growth rate in KwaZulu-Natal is estimated to have dropped from 1.1% in 23 to an estimated 0.5% in 24. This growth rate is expected to improve moderately to 1.7% in 2025 and 1.8% in 2026, supported by the implementation of effective structural reforms in key sectors such as energy, freight and logistics, water, green and ocean economies, as well as the adoption of an integrated program to support the informal economy. The Government of Provincial Unity in KwaZulu-Natal aligns to the 3 strategic priorities set by the Government of National Unity. And these are the cornerstones of our programs of action. These 3 strategic priorities are the following: driving economic growth and job creation, reducing poverty and addressing the high cost of living, and building a capable and ethical and developmental state. It is important that we set out to accomplish these priorities in a sustainable manner. In order to achieve that, we must ensure that inclusive economic growth continues to improve. This will lead to the creation of new sustainable jobs, increased revenue for government, which will in turn improve our capacity to fund key government service delivery programs. The GPU has a responsibility to build the province's economy after several challenges, which include, as I said earlier, the COVID-19 pandemic, the July 21 unrest, and various other natural disasters that we faced. Madam Speaker, Treasury has no easy task in guiding the province out of this fiscal quagmire. But we are up to the task. But we cannot do this in isolation. Our heads of department, our chief financial officers, and members of the executive need to work with us to achieve full fiscal recovery and stability. The provincial budget is being tabled against this backdrop. Low growth prospects mean that the country cannot afford to take on more expenses. KwaZulu-Natal, like other provinces, will have to reprioritize its existing budget to fund new service delivery imperatives that may be identified over the MTF. While the budget being presented today largely brings good news of additional funds for both the equitable share and the conditional grant allocation for this province, we have to acknowledge that historic budget cuts have put immense strain on the provincial fiscus. This has resulted in severe budget constraints for a number of our government departments, resulting in an unsustainable growth of accruals in our current financial year. It is clear that we cannot continue to budget using the only incremental budgeting approach, as we have done for so long in the past. Rather, we need to adopt a budget business unusual approach. Madam Speaker, the formulation of the 25-26 budget for KZN has been an arduous task. We've had to consider several competing needs with our limited financial resources. Priority has to be given to critical service delivery departments while still trying to maintain operations in non-critical areas. We have to realize that as provincial departments, we don't operate in isolation or in silos, but under one fiscal umbrella. Having said that, a budget of 158 billion rand is a big ship to turn. And to minimize disruption and paralysis of the provincial finances, the Provincial Treasury Senior Management Team and myself set aside a few days in December to unpack the best way forward. We've come up with a very credible provincial financial recovery plan that is packaged into 6 work streams. Some of these work streams are responsible for looking into provincial revenue optimization, while some are looking into right-sizing the budget within the current resource envelope. We anticipate that a lot of work will have to be completed by June of this year and will, in all likelihood, require a reorganization of our budget. I would expand on the provincial recovery plan, the provincial financial recovery plan, and its responsibilities over the various work streams when I present the Vote 6 provincial treasury budget speech in this House. The province, Madam Speaker, has 3 sources of funding, and these sources are used to fund the government programs in KwaZulu-Natal. The largest source of funding is the provincial equitable share, followed by the conditional grant funding, and to a lesser extent, provincial own revenue. This latter source relates to funds the province collects from items such as motor vehicle licenses, health patient fees, interest on our provincial bank account, gambling taxes, among others. And the graph that you see below shows the source of these fundings. Madam Speaker, I'm pleased to announce that this is the very first time in many years that KwaZulu-Natal actually benefits additionally to our own budget over the MTF as a result of the data updates of the provincial equitable share formula. In recent years, these data updates have not worked in our favor, which has resulted in reductions in our funding. Over this MTF, I'm very pleased to say that our budget increases by approximately 7.2 billion rand. This is allocated over the 3 MTF years. It's a lot of money, 7.2 billion rand. This is allocated over the 3 MTF years with 1.7 billion rand allocated to 25-26, 2.3 billion in 26-27, and 3.1 billion in the outer year in 27-28. These additional provincial equitable share funds were allocated to a number of provincial service delivery priorities. The 2025 wage agreement gap, where departments were required to budget for a 4.6% increase compared to the 5.5% agreed wage increase. That's the first time since we've had budget cuts that this province is not being subject to funding any wage increase after negotiations. That's an enormous step in the right direction, and it's a contribution made by this province during the Budget Council process. Also, the Presidential Youth Empowerment Initiative for the employment of educator assistants under Vote 5 education. Some of the additional funds were also used to increase the contingency reserve. I will provide some more detail shortly. In addition to this, National Treasury gave us the very positive news that there will be no further fiscal consolidation cuts implemented against the province in this MTEF. Important to note, though, that the previous fiscal cuts, which I referred to earlier, remain in our provincial baseline. Further positive news is that we received a significant increase in our conditional grant allocation. And this has nothing to do with the second adjustments, which I tabled a short while ago. This is part of the 25-26 budget. The conditional grant budget increases by 20.6 billion rand over the MTF, with the largest increase in 25-26 of 1.3 billion, 79 million, and then 1.2 billion in the outer year. Our provincial own revenue budget was revised downwards, which is always a concern, but this is mainly because of lower than anticipated collections from health patient fees, as well as the impact of lower interest rates anticipated over the medium term, which obviously impacts the interest we anticipate receiving on the provincial bank account over the MTF. The net reduction over the MTF amounts to 179 million rand less that we will collect. And as I indicated, one of the provincial financial recovery plan work streams will focus on increasing our provincial own revenue going forward by looking into both existing and new sources of revenue over the MTF. In aggregate, Madam Speaker, we see a healthy increase in our funding over the MTF. The budget we have over the MTF to fund all our activities is shown in Table 1, which shows the provincial equitable share, conditional grants received from National Treasury, as well as the amount we anticipate to collect from our provincial own revenue. In the 25-26, the provincial equitable share amounts to 128.1 billion, with the amounts allocated over the MTF shown in Table 1 above. The conditional grant allocation amounts to 26.4 billion rand. This means that the total amount we receive from National Treasury is 154.5 billion. When adding the provincial own revenue and provincial cash resources to this amount, the total revenue for the province, as I said earlier, is the amount of 158.8 billion. The provincial departments are planning to spend 158.5 billion, and the contingency reserve is set at 278 million rand, growing to 468 million rand over the MTF. As mentioned, we received an increase in our provincial equitable share as a result of the data updates of the formula that determines the budget to be allocated to each province, as well as the 25 wage agreement gap and the Presidential Youth Employment Initiative. This was offset by the reduction in our provincial own revenue budget, and in aggregate, the funds available for allocation are shown in Table 2. Some of the additional funds were given to the province by National Treasury for specific purpose and were allocated to various votes in line with these conditions. For now, the funds for the 25 wage agreement gap have been allocated to social sector departments in view of their ongoing budget pressure, whereas the balance is kept in the contingency reserved with an in-year assessment to be undertaken of the remaining departments' personnel spending pressures before making the allocation in the 25-26 adjustments budget in November of this year. At the recent tabling of the 25-26 budget by the Minister of Finance, it was announced that an additional 29.1 billion rand would be allocated to education and 28.9 billion would be allocated to health for spending pressures related to COE across all provinces. As I said earlier, Treasury is one step ahead and is already in the process of preparing a motivation to access a significant portion of these funds for the province. These funds will be appropriated to the provinces in the 25-26 adjustments budget. The additional funds resulting from the data updates of the equitable share formula were allocated to various priorities at the province's discretion, and these had no conditions attached to them. Considering the significant budget pressure that departments have experienced as a result of the historic fiscal consolidation budget cuts, the Provincial Executive Council resolved that all votes should be provided with an opportunity to bid for the available funds. This also allowed the Executive to see what departments viewed as their immediate pressing needs, but also to allow for a fair allocation of these resources. As was expected, the funding requests by all votes from all departments far exceeded what was our available allocation. This required significant engagement and debate by the Ministers' Committee on the Budget and the Provincial Executive Council. There was also a decision taken to adjust the contingency reserve, mainly to ensure that a higher amount is available in the outer years to allow the province to respond more adequately for unforeseen spending pressures that may arise. Table 3 that you see below shows the allocation of all additional provincial equitable share funds. By far the largest portion of the additional funds was again allocated to our frontline social sector departments, in part informed by the severe budget pressures that they've been experiencing in recent years. It is imperative that during this recovery period, we protect our frontline departments, who have also borne the brunt of the equitable share cuts imposed by National Treasury, who have also suffered from unfunded wage agreements concluded nationally. Health, education, and social development need our attention. These funds were allocated as follows, with the amounts shown in Table 3. The Provincial Legislature received funding for the carry-through costs of the 24 wage agreement, additional funds for the employment of researchers, voter education leading up to the local government election, as well as funds to strengthen the work of the oversight committees. Vote 3, Agriculture and Rural Development, receives funds for communal livestock production, the fight against foot and mouth disease, which is becoming all the more prevalent, as well as new laboratory equipment. Vote 5, Education, receives funds towards addressing budget pressures that have been evident since the commencement of the fiscal consolidation budget cuts, and the department also receives funds for the 25 wage agreement gap, as well as the Provincial Youth Employment Initiative. The funds for the Employment Initiative will be used to employ 10,322 educator assistants in the 25-26 year on a 12-month contract. The department's total budget has therefore increased by 3.7 billion rand year on year. Health receives funding towards addressing the budget pressures that have been evident since the commencement of the fiscal consolidation. The department also receives funds for the 25 wage agreement gap, and the department's budget has therefore increased by 2.4 billion rand year on year. That means it's moved from 53.8 billion to 56.2 billion. Vote 9, Community Safety and Liaison, the Premier will be happy to note, receives funding to support community safety structures with items such as safety vests, two-way radios, hats, caps, as well as training and for out-of-pocket expenses for these structures. The funds are also for an electronic complaint management system for complaints managed of SAP services, as well as gender-based violence activists at police stations. The department wishes to appoint youth as GBV activists to provide support to victims of GBV when they go to police stations. Furthermore, the funds are for the placement of law graduates in police stations so that police officers are better equipped to handle legal challenges, thus improving compliance with the law. Vote 12, Transport, receives funding to start right-sizing the budget for learner transport, which has shown budget pressures in recent years. After allocating these funds, there is still a shortfall in the baseline. Vote 13, Social Development, receives funding towards addressing the budget pressures that have been evident since the commencement of our budget cuts. The department also receives funds for the 25 wage agreement gap, and the department's budget has therefore increased by 202 million rand year on year. Vote 14, Public Works and Infrastructure, receives funding to start right-sizing the budget for property rates, which has shown budget pressures in the recent years. After allocating these funds, there still remains a shortfall in the baseline. Amendments to the conditional grant allocation by National Treasury. The second highest portion of our funding, as I said earlier, is allocated to us by National Treasury in the form of conditional grants. These funds are allocated to fund specific government programs, and the allocations are made in line with the Division of Revenue Act, and as indicated, the conditional grant budget shows a net increase over the MTF, and the province gains 1.3 billion rand in the 25-26 financial year. A portion of the additional funding results from the incentive nature of some of the infrastructure-related conditional grants. A further portion relates to the funding of the 2025 wage agreement gap for staff funded through various conditional grants, while some additions are to increase the baseline of certain of our grants. The only reduction made in the 25-26 year relates to the Comprehensive Agricultural Support Program, where 13 million is moved to the National Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development to augment the funding for the blended finance scheme. Within the grant, there's a shift from the infrastructure portion of the grant to fund extension officers in the Extension Recovery Planning Services portion of the grant. The most significant increases in the conditional grants are discussed here. All conditional grants that have a personnel-related element see budget increases with respect to the 25 wage agreement. This affects grants such as the NSNP, the National School Nutrition Program, the Education Infrastructure Grant, the Health Revitalization Grant, the Human Settlements Development Grant, Community Library Services Grant, and the EPWP Integrated Grants for Provinces. In aggregate, the province receives 147 million rand through the EPWP integrated grants for provinces, which is an increase from the 141 million rand received last year. The education infrastructure grant increases by 93 million rand to a total of 2.5 billion. This grant is incentive-based and the department scored well. Well done, MEC Hlumuga. Not only did you improve on your matric results, but National Treasury also notes that your score is well, achieving 84% in terms of submitting planning documentation and showing capacity to be able to spend. The department is congratulated on this excellent achievement. The national National School Nutrition Program grant receives an increase of 33.3 million in the 25-26 year, resulting in a budget of 2.3 billion rand. It is noted that this grant showed spending pressures in the current year, and the allocation will assist in addressing these shortfalls. The Early Childhood Development Grant receives an increase of 17.4 million to support the infrastructure component of this grant. The Health Facility Revitalization Grant is increased by 76.2 million rand to 1.5 billion rand. The department once again fared well and scored 95% with respect to the incentive nature of this grant. The department and MEC Nomogugu Semelani is congratulated and her team on continuously qualifying for the incentive allocation. The District Health Program grant increases by 34.6 million to 7.5 billion. The Provincial Roads Maintenance Grants is also an incentive-based grant and sees a significant increase of 874 million rand, resulting in a total budget of 3.5 billion in the next year. The provincial budget is allocated to 14 votes for spending, as shown in the table below. This table shows the amounts allocated to each vote for spending in the 25-26 and each vote's share of the total provincial budget. In aggregate, 79.9% of the provincial budget is allocated to 3 social service departments: education, health, and social development. Madam Speaker, I want to repeat that because there's a narrative out there that this government is not interested in our frontline departments. 79.9% of the provincial budget is allocated to 3 social service departments: education, health, and social development. Each MEC will elaborate on what these funds will deliver when they present their respective budgets in this House, while significant detail is also contained in this regard in the estimates of provincial revenue and expenditure, as well as the estimates of capital, which you should have a copy in front of you and I'm tabling today. In conclusion, Madam Speaker, as part of Treasury's initiative towards building a sustainable economy focused on job creation, Treasury KZN will be hosting a public-private partnership workshop in May to unpack the newly adopted public-private partnership regulations that take effect from the 1st of April this year. This will afford stakeholders an opportunity to invest in the development of a sustainable economy through mutual collaboration and benefit, and one of the focus areas being the creation of sustainable jobs. Madam Speaker, I stated earlier that we have not been able to accede to all the requests for funding. However, I remain confident that with the budget I have delivered today, we will move all that much closer to achieving our strategic objectives. There are definite signs of economic green shoots coming through, as is seen in the increase of our equitable share, additional allocations to our conditional grants, and the results we aim to achieve through the Provincial Financial Recovery Plan. What is required now is discipline, with a sharp focus on the end objective: growth in our economy, job creation, and stabilizing and reducing the cost of our living. As Treasury, we are committed to perform oversight and monitoring, something that's not always very well palatable. We have to monitor provincial expenditure with a view to prevent expenditure of non-essential areas of government. Treasury is also undertaking a process to identify new streams of revenue for our provincial focus. Cabinet resolved to adopt a cost containment instruction note, which is aimed at sustaining KwaZulu-Natal's ability to take care of its needs while protecting the future. Cutting the nice-to-haves to protect the must-haves. One such example is Cabinet's agreement to do away with rental vehicles with the procurement of vehicles in line with National Treasury guidelines. I have been given an update on the expenditure incurred, and watch the space. When the government of provincial unity took office, the province was projected to overspend in the region of 10 billion rand, and I had raised this in the House. We were projecting an over-expenditure on current spending pressures of 10 billion. With strict control measures and compliance, we have managed to reduce this to below 5 billion rand. Treasury awaits the approval for the acquisition and implementation of an e-procurement tool, which I spoke about earlier, and this system will put a stop to overcharging of goods and services during SCM and the tender process. Gone are the days where departments will procure bottles of water for 50 rand where they should be procuring them for 15 rand. That is what the system will in fact eliminate. The system will yield enormous savings for the province and reduce irregularities in the procurement process. We are making great strides in achieving a balanced budget. It's a painful process, but a process that needs to be sustained and supported. And I'm happy to say that, Madam Speaker, the Premier has supported me and has become the champion of turning the province into an ethical state when it comes to fiscal discipline. Another initiative to be introduced in April 2025 is the departmental financial dashboards. Every department will now have a dashboard that the committee, the MECs, will have direct access to the creditor's balance, to the debtor's balance, to the cash balance, and any projected expenditure. This will assist committees and members of the executive to effectively and simply monitor the financial position of their department. So once a month you can take the blood pressure, you can test the sugar levels of your department, Honourable Kika. KwaZulu-Natal Treasury is also exploring the establishment of an information centre. This centre will focus on Operation Pay on Time and assist with tender processes and supplying information on public-private partnerships, particularly assisting our small and emerging SMMEs. Going forward, I will continue in my capacity as MEC to regularly engage with the Premier and the Provincial Executive on good financial practices. We will be consistent in our advocacy for efficient expenditure, the prioritization of programs aimed at alleviating poverty, inequality, unemployment, effective service delivery, and building a sustainable economy. I'd like to thank the Honourable Premier, Premier Ntuli, and the Honourable members of the Provincial Executive Council and the members of the Ministers' Committee on the Budget for their support in putting together the KwaZulu-Natal budget for the 25-26 financial year. Madam Speaker, also allow me to take this opportunity to thank my political home, the Democratic Alliance, for affording me the opportunity to fulfill the role of MEC of Finance in the province of KwaZulu-Natal. I wish to also thank the A-team, the Treasury officials, under the leadership of HOD Ms. Carol Kotsia, for ensuring that the budget documentation is of its usual high quality and the contained commitment shown by the entire team at Treasury. You're an asset to the province of KwaZulu-Natal, and also my heartfelt thanks must also go to the National Treasury team and the National Minister of Finance. To the Chairperson of the Committee of Finance, Mr. Mthandeni Dluwana, and members of the Finance Portfolio Committee, your input, as always, is invaluable. I look forward to engaging with you on the budget process going forward. Madam Speaker, to the most important people in my life, my wife Rita, who's in the house today, and my youngest daughter Hayley, and my daughter who is watching in Malawi, live streaming from Malawi. I want to thank my family for their love, support. Being a politician is not always a family-orientated occupation. You have been a pillar of my strength. Thank you very much. Madam Speaker, ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to formally table the 25-26 financial year budget for the province of KwaZulu-Natal. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Honourable MEC. Thank you, honourable members. It said, behind every smart man is a smarter woman, so I'd like to also acknowledge Mrs. Rita Rodgers in the gallery today, and his daughter and son-in-law who are here. And I'd also like to acknowledge all guests that are here in the gallery today. Honourable members, in the terms of the Standing Rule 239, the KZN Appropriation Bill 2025 is hereby referred to the Portfolio Committee on Finance and to the Standing Committee on Oversight of the Legislature. Further, I am adjourning the House to allow for the Finance Committee and the Standing Committee on Oversight of the Legislature to meet in Ingcungce Committee Room to process the KZN Second Adjustment Appropriation Bill, which was tabled before 2025 budget, and report back to the House today. The House will then resume at 10:25, and the House is adjourned until then. Thank you so much, honourable members. Oh, pardon? 25? 25 past. Is that 50 minutes? I'm right. Thank you, honourable members. The House will adjourn until 10:25. Thank you.